Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game SO Target Entertaining Series on the MiSTer FPGA DE10 Nano Project. We got an exciting video for you guys this evening because as of yesterday afternoon, Hotego and his team released the X-Men core for MiSTer FPGA as a beta, and they've been teasing this for the last couple of months, saying they're working on it, and it is finally here, and it is like 95% of the way there to being a perfect core. Because this is one of Konami's best beat-em-up games of all time, you know you're going to want to play it, and if you bring 3 friends along for the ride, you're going to get a great 4-player experience. Before you get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But as far as Hotego betas are concerned, some of the cores definitely have a lot of visual glitches and issues, and that's totally to be expected and fine. But as far as beta cores are concerned, I would say this feels like 95 to 98% completely buttoned up, and if you didn't pixel peep and look for the few visual glitches here and there, you'd probably have no idea this wasn't just a 100% complete core that was mirroring the arcade hardware one-to-one. And I know Hotego mentioned on Twitter that some of the work here was based on Furtek's decap of the custom chips, and Furtek does some awesome work when it comes to actually getting scans of the hardware and the silicon so people can reverse engineer them. So it is definitely a team effort on this one. And the best thing is you get one of the most coveted MiSTer FPGA cores around. This, along with Simpsons and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which we already have, are some of the best Konami beat-em-ups of all time. But don't forget, there's other Konami beat-em-ups that hopefully come to MiSTer FPGA one day. Hopefully Violent Storm is one of them. That's one of my favorites of all time. But this game was just an absolute Hall of Fame first ballot classic, and if you got lucky back in the day, you would have seen the gigantic 2-monitor cabinet. More often than not, you'd see the 4-player cabinet, and that is the round variant being played here. And big thanks to Andy D for helping out with some of the footage. It's a 2-player experience, and Mrs. Andy D is along for the ride this week as well, so that's always a treat. But just take a look at the visuals, take a look at the motion and the controls, all of the inputs. You'd be hard-pressed to know that this was running off anything other than a real arcade PCB, outside of the fact that you have that pixel-perfect HDMI out. Because if you're not a PCB collector and you don't have a cabinet or a super gun, you may not realize that pretty much any time you capture an original PCB with a capture card, you don't get an image that is this clean. And honestly, this is one of the prettiest ways to play this game in my opinion at this point in time. And it is just fun to be getting all of these new cores as well. Obviously, Hotego last week ended up updating Neo Geo Pocket Color, and that was fun. But people were definitely waiting for the X-Men core, and it is here. Just do be aware that you do need to be a member of his Patreon to get the core and the key to make sure it plays, and it's like $5 a month and definitely worth it in my opinion. All of the story beats, all of the speech, all of the music are here. Honestly, if you didn't, again, just try to find the couple small issues in the images. You really wouldn't think that there was any problems with this whatsoever, and that again is a great baseline to start. And the best part is all of the visuals in this game just look outstanding from the art department at Konami. All of the colors, all of the sprites, the background layers, this game still looks as good today as it did when it came out, and honestly, if you release this in 2024, I think the reviewers would say the exact same thing. And of course, it's got a great set of enemies, all of those dinosaurs and weird things you're going to be seeing later. It is just a fun and wild game, and again, if you get 3 friends over for a game night, load up all of those virtual quarters and play a 4-player experience. It is absolutely chaotic in the best way possible, and I love this giant skull just spitting out bees as well. Totally a fun thing to see, and this is just fun to get another classic arcade game. Hotego's definitely been pumping these things out pretty much every other week, but this one is definitely one of those big ones. I think a lot of people are going to be very happy to play it, and trust me, if you actually have an original arcade PCB, I've got one in the closet next to me, wiring up 4-player controls if you don't have an original cabinet is an absolute nightmare, and something I do not recommend anyone try. It is just an absolute mess, and for the most part, most super guns are only going to be set up for 2 players as well, so you have to do a custom wiring job for 3 and 4 player off of some of the hardware on the PCB. But go ahead and listen to the music for 45 seconds. I would say it's extremely close to accurate, if not perfect, but again, I'm not an audiophile, I deal only in the visual, so listen, tell me what you think afterwards, but I think that this is probably, like I said, 99% of the way perfect on the audio. 45 seconds, listen, and I'll be right back. Sounds really good to my ear, but you let me know down below. And the best thing about something like an FPGA core for X-Men is that the audio is great, and if you know anything about Konami PCBs, you'll know that there's a lot of customs on there as far as the audio circuitry is concerned, and basically every single one of those custom packages is guaranteed to fail at some point in time. And while people do make reproduction of those packages, it can be a chore to replace them, so having something like an FPGA core is a great middle ground, because again, Konami audio of a certain generation on the PCB can be an absolute pain. If you didn't notice there can be ever so slightly weirdness in some of the shadows, but if I didn't point it out again, you probably wouldn't have even noticed it. It just seems to be that every once in a while part of the shadow likes to disappear, but that might be in the original game too. I'd have to look at a closer comparison and grab my PCB out of the closet. So if you want to see a side-by-side comparison in the future, leave me a comment down below and tell me what you think. As we go on to the next boss fight here again, everything just looks great. All of the heads-up display, all of the life information, the background layer, all of that basic force field graphic effect on the right, and all of the sprites, you really couldn't notice anything about this image that made it seem like it was doing anything other than the real arcade hardware. And again, that is always the goal of FPGA cores. You want a one-to-one recreation of the original PCB, so if you put them side by side, you would have the exact same experience. And having played around with this in the background as well, I can say it feels exactly like playing X-Men. There is nothing in the controls, there's nothing in the inputs, there's nothing in the hit detection, obviously, that would make it any less fun than playing an original board. And honestly, the lack of time having to actually wire up that board makes this probably the version I will play in the future, and I may even end up selling my X-Men board, because honestly, it is relatively valuable, and it is common, because this is one of those games that just absolutely holds its value just due to pure nostalgia. If you go on eBay, you could probably find 20 of these boards for sale today. Not a hard game to find, but definitely something you're going to want to bring your wallet along for. As we continue to move through the game again, I love the art style, and as we break into this little downward elevator, all of the sprites are exactly where they should be, and that really is what I kind of look for when we do these tests. Is there any sprite corruption? Is there any issues in the background? Things that you could notice and quickly point out to say, yes, it's a beta, yes, it's great, but there's definitely still going to be some improvements. And on X-Men, that really isn't something that I'm finding much of at all. In the beginning of the game, when you're getting some of the story, Magneto has this rectangle over his eyes that just seems like a sprite or some sort of shading element that isn't adhering to what the board would do, but otherwise in action, you can basically just ignore the fact that this isn't finished and just have fun with it like you would a normal board. There was a little bit of weirdness in those two sleds as they went by, maybe like a strip of pixels or sprites missing there, but again, these are really small, tiny things that if I didn't point them out to you and you were just playing and having fun, you probably wouldn't realize it whatsoever. And as far as when is this core going to become public, I'll say the same thing about every single core. When you ask me that question, I have no idea. Usually it's like 3 to 4 months after Hotego publishes the first beta, they will come out of beta and go public. But again, definitely worth the $5 to check this thing out early. And I appreciate that all of this wavy background here with that lava and that pseudo heat looks correct. But one more sound sample, because this next track I particularly like in the game, and again, it just goes to show how good the sound is in the first pass of the core. Such a fun soundtrack, and I absolutely love that track, but every once in a while, in some of this pseudo-stereo separation there, whatever they're trying to fake as stereo, I do get a little bit of a hum. Maybe that's in the original board as well. I'd have to check, because I do these videos wearing studio headphones. When I'm playing a game, I just play it on speaker, so it might be something that's there all the time, and I just don't usually hear it because I'm not wearing headphones. But again, this is just a beta. Improvements are going to be coming, but there's not many improvements that need to actually be added. And trust me, if you want to just sit down and play this today, you can complete it from start to finish. It is not going to freeze. There's going to be no issues as far as playability is concerned. You might just see a little weird graphical effect or get a little buzz in the audio every once in a while, and that is definitely something you can 100% live with to get a game this fun. And that really is the thing about X-Men. This was a classic when it came out. It's every bit as fun today as it ever has been, and I highly doubt you're ever going to really see a re-release of this game or any sort of sequel, because when this game came out, these franchises weren't as popular. Obviously now, they're absolutely massive, so Konami is really not going to probably want to relicense anything like this in the future because it would probably cost a metric crap ton of money and wouldn't be profitable. But that's the fun thing about MiSTer FPGA and MiSTer FPGA cores in general. It lets you play some of these classic arcade games in the closest possible way accuracy-wise compared to a real arcade PCB. But don't get me wrong, the MAME implementation of this game is spectacular as well and also a great option to play. So if you're going to leave that comment down below and say, well, MAME already did it, we 100% understand that, and I use MAME a ton on this channel and just for fun, so it's not like I really have any preferences to how you play this game, so long as you do play it. But I can say with absolute confidence, as far as beta cores are concerned, this is probably one of the best to come out in 2024, not just because it's one of the best arcade beat-em-ups of all time, but because there's absolutely nothing here that's going to interfere with your fun playing the game. There's no crashing, there's no hiccups, there's no terrible graphical corruption, and while that's totally fine in beta cores, a lot of people love seeing that just to understand how core development works. This is the type of release where you would be hard pressed to even realize it was a beta if you didn't watch videos like this and basically examine the pixels alongside with me. And of course, like I said earlier in the game, you can 100% beat this game 1, 2, 3, or 4 player, so you can just sit down and enjoy this like it is a full game experience, because that's exactly what it is. And again, this is a fun way to kind of hit mid-October on MiSTer FPGA. We've been waiting for this core for months now, and it is now officially here. Just one more reminder, you have to be a beta member of the Hotego Patreon to be able to get that key to play the game, but as long as you have that, go grab the core, go grab X-Men, and have a ton of fun. And if it is not coming down, do be aware that archive.org is still having some issues, so you may need to manually install this one. But short of that, we are done. We have saved the universe, things went boom, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.